Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here doing my thoughts and impressions for the Mortal Kombat trailer that released today. I actually watched it at work. I thought it was really good. First off, it was red band, so I was excited to see that. I didn't really think much of it, but I was like, once I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's smart, because who wants to see a green band trailer for what is obviously going to be rated R Mortal Kombat? So I was, right off the top, I was like, thank you, red band trailer, that's good. Another thing, honestly, the thing that makes this like a 10 out of 10, Sub-Zero actually seemed to be beating everybody. Like, I know that technically in that fight with Scorpion, it was kind of a back and forth, but I was like, I like seeing Sub-Zero win, because Ed Boon likes Scorpion. If for anyone who doesn't know this, Scorpion is Ed Boon's favorite character, which is why all the, like, promo stuff, it's always Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, because it's like, well, if Scorpion is his favorite, obviously you're going to put his main rival. Like, if it was Liu Kang that was his favorite, maybe he'd always be fighting, you know, Shao Kahn in the footage or something, but it also makes it easier because they're never going to not have a game with Scorpion and Sub-Zero in it, so it's always easy. But Scorpion's his favorite, so obviously Sub-Zero's always getting beat up. That's why he always loses, and I hate that because Sub-Zero's my favorite, so I'm like, can't Sub-Zero just win for once? And I know this was Bihan, so it was like evil Sub-Zero. Not that it matters. I mean, across all Mortal Kombat games, Sub-Zero gets beat up in the promo footage to Scorpion because Ed Boon has his favorite. So, you know, I understand it, but Sub-Zero's my favorite, so I like the trailer because I was like, okay, you know, I'm cool with Jax, but he ain't Sub-Zero, and, you know, Sub-Zero froze his arms, and that was super effed up. Like, you see the blood inside of the frozen arms as he's ripping them apart, and they just explode. Like, the gun part was amazing. Like, he pulls the trigger, and he freezes the front, and, like, the bullet's technically still moving towards him, but it's, like, just, you know, stretching out the ice. I thought that was fantastic, and he was like, boom, your gun's gone, and now your arms are gone. I was like, that's crazy. So that's super effed up. I mean, last time we saw him lose his arms, I'm pretty sure it was to Ermac. I'm pretty sure it was Mortal Kombat 9 where we got to see that, or just Mortal Kombat. So it's not like that was nice. It's not like it was just boop and they're gone. He suffered then too. So, you know, Jax he has to suffer, unfortunately. You know, for us, I guess. I don't know. But it looked great. That's all I know. It was amazing. I was like, that was insane. And that was the opening. It was like, boom, he throws a bullet in the air, and then he just freezes and rips this guy's arms off. So that was insane. And then we go through and we get introduced to, I believe Cole is the character, like, you know, our new character. We'll see. That's the thing that I'm like, what's going to happen here? How is this going to play out? Is it going to be good? Is it going to be kind of weird? I always wondered, like, why couldn't it just be Liu Kang and they kind of just do it, admittedly, kind of like the original films where he knew a bit about it. Like, he was kind of like, he was a less knowledgeable version of the video game character, but he knew about it a little bit, but he still had to ask, you know, all the exposition questions. And technically, they have to do that anyway. With it being the first game, they're going to do that anyway, but they also kind of make it seem like going into the actual tournament, everyone seems to have way more knowledge. Like, the way that they did it was like, you know, even Jax, he was just like, oh, that's not a birthmark, it means you're chosen. I was like, okay, so they're kind of making it where not only with them encountering Sub-Zero, so it's like, okay, this dude had superpowers, so they kind of research all this information leading up to the tournament. So it seems like the characters are actually going to be way more knowledgeable than they were in the past, where it was like, actually kind of like the game story where it's just like, we're random people and then we get thrown into this crazy magic tournament. It seems like in this aspect, they fought Sub-Zero and then it was like, superpowers are real. What the F is that all about? And so they have a bunch of time and then they find out about the tournament. So it seems like going into it, Sonya and Jax already know what's going on as soon as they're in it. And then Cole, which I hope I'm not getting his name wrong, he's the one who's going to be our kind of leading character. Like Liu Kang, of course, they're kind of going to make him just like the video game, so I don't mind that, even though it was super weird. And I watched other people's reactions. I wasn't the only person. I should have worn my Street Fighter hoodie because it would have totally fitted to Ryu. But he was dressed like Ryu because they had him in the white and he had the red sash, and then it was like one of the scenes he had a red headband and then another scene he didn't. I think most of the scenes he didn't, but there's like one shot where I'm like, I'm pretty sure he had a red headband on alongside, you know, the white and the red, and I was like, that was weird. Why did they do that? Because it's like, he looks like, you know, like those are Ryu's colors. It was like the perfect colors too. It wasn't kind of like, oh, that kind of makes me think of Ryu. I was like, that's like the exact color. That is like the white and the red. It was like perfect. And I was like, that's Ryu. It's still fine. It was just like, huh, that's funny. That's weird that they made that decision to do that. But he looked good. He did the fire and he can control it. And he did the dragon. So that was super sick. We saw Kano not only do his laser eye, but we also got to see him do an actual fatality at the end where he ripped someone's heart out. whatever that crazy wolf looking thing was. I know that Reptile was in this trailer. It seemed like those parts went together. Like there's like a quick clip, you might have to go back and check it, but they showed that the camouflage is like coming off of Reptile as he's stepping over some sort of cabinet or something. He's like at the very top of the screen, but of course he's becoming visible, so you don't really notice it in like the quick second that they show it, and then they cut to something else. But I don't think that was him that Kano actually ends up like stabbing into, because for one, like I said, it looked like just a big old red wolf, and I was like, okay, yeah, I don't. It seems interesting, but I'm like, I don't think that was really Reptile. But we'll see what ends up happening with that. They could do a myriad of things. Honestly, it could be like it was some like Reptile prototype sort of deal. I would assume that's not going to end up being the case because it looked like it was Reptile. So I assume that that's not really the case, but they could do whatever that if they want, in all honesty. But it seemed good. We had Kung Lao in there, so that was cool. So we have our main original cast from the very first game. So we have Liu Kang, the addition being Kung Lao, but we have Liu Kang, Sonya, Jax, Sub-Zero, Scorpion, Raiden, Kano. Shang Tsung is in it. Goro is in it as well. Shao Kahn is referenced, so I think we are going to have... Yeah, I think they're clearly setting things up, especially with the way that they're kind of handling... Yeah, I mean, they have to do this. They can't do all of Mortal Kombat in one movie. That would be insane. So they're clearly establishing, like, this is Mortal Kombat 1. We'll see what happens when we get to the end, but I assume that that's going to be like, boom, Mortal Kombat 1. They've done everything they need to do. They seem to kind of be going the right. As far as Scorpion, they're going to give us his backstory, so he'll seem more acceptable, I think, because initially it was just like, oh, he just seems like the bad guy, but in reality, Scorpion is basically just Spawn. Like, he's like, I was killed unceremoniously, and so was my family. I just want revenge. So, ironically, he died the hero and lived long enough to become the villain. Weird. But they'll be doing the backstory, so it'll be like, oh, he's not really that bad of a guy, which technically he's not. Like, I think everyone, once you like see his story, it's like, oh, I get it now. Because as a kid, it was like, oh, you know, Sub-Zero and Scorpion, they're, especially in the first game, technically, they were just both, like, bad guys. That's just how they seem. And then it's like, once you know the backstory, it's like, oh, no. Especially in this movie, because Sub-Zero also is the person who attacks Jack. So it's like, Sub-Zero is just, like, as of now, Sub-Zero is the main villain of this movie, really, when you think about it. It's like, he took out Jax, he took out the whole squad. He's responsible for killing Scorpion and his family, and it's like, yeah, this version of Sub-Zero he's gonna be sweet as Noob Saibot. That's what I know. So we'll see how that pans out. You know, that's of course given that the movie does well, which I'm hopeful. The trailer just seemed good. Honestly, I mean, I think we can all agree the trailer just seemed cool. So I hope it works out. We have to wait until the story elements really come into play, but action-wise, it seemed kind of cool. Melina was also in this. She was another addition. So I definitely think they'll be saving all of that extra stuff for this second movie, and maybe they'll like slowly introduce it through her character, because I don't think she showed up until I don't think she was even in the second game. I don't have the greatest memory of when the characters were introduced. Like, I know the story of Mortal Kombat, I just can't remember specifically like who was in Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2 and stuff like that. So I don't remember when she was introduced, but considering she is the clone of Kitana and their whole thing is solely revolved around Shao Kahn, that does make me curious. Like, what are they going to do with her character if Shao Kahn's not going to be the main villain? Like, it's going to be Shang Tsung, as it was in the game. So, Shang Tsung, and then it leads to Shao Kahn. So, it does make me curious. Like, what is her plotline really going to be if they're not including Shao Kahn and how he's the reason she exists, and they're not going to include her sister, which, you know, the Princess of Edenia, you know, stuff like that. I'm like, what role does she play as just the random character? Because you can't have Melina show up and they don't ever reference like all this other crazy stuff. Like, she's a part of a very giant chunk of Mortal Kombat history, and to just be like, yeah, Melina's just Melina, that's a little weird. I mean, people who don't know the game won't care, but people who don't know the game also aren't going to bother seeing the movie. So I think it's all for us anyway, who know stupid stuff like Edenia is the name of where, you know, Melina and Katana come from. So I'm very curious how that's going to play out for her character, because I'm like, how do you have her in there but you don't have Kitana? So I assume that she'll be in it. Shao Kahn, I think they will end up saving, and he'll just, you know, be off somewhere else and doing whatever. So I think Kitana is in this movie. They just saved her for a little bit, and I'm sure there are other characters as well. But I'm excited to see it. We also, you know, we technically didn't see Johnny Cage either, so I would assume he's in it, because if they're using Kano as the comic relief, which is what they seem to be doing, then they don't have Johnny Cage for the comic relief, and that's interesting. That's very odd because Johnny Cage was one of the people who's in the original. So I was like, how is that going to play out? So, he'll probably be in it, but if he's not, that's very interesting. And it's like, they could have had other characters that they swapped out that, like Kung Lao wasn't in the first Mortal Kombat, but clearly they're doing something there if they're going with, like, no, we have to have Kung Lao in the first movie, in the first tournament. There's some reason they decided, well, let's put, the dragon, kind of the dragon characters together. Let's do Kung Lao and Liu Kang together in this first movie. It's like, okay, they got something going on. So there's like a lot of things that I noticed where I'm like, this character wasn't showing up. They could be in the movie, but if they're not in the movie, it brings in a lot of questions like, how is the story going to kind of weave in and out, and how are they going to adapt, stuff from the game, which obviously they've changed. I mean, considering the fact that Sub-Zero is the one that takes Jax's arms, that's already like a really big change to have all of the heroes going up against Sub-Zero, because it was always just, it's Scorpion versus Sub-Zero, and that was like its own thing. Like, those dudes are oddly powerful, and we don't want to F with either of them, and they're just over there doing that eternal battle. But now it's like Sub-Zero is legit like the big bad villain, pretty much. Like, he took on the actual heroes, and he took on, Scorpion and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see how they handle Sub-Zero in this film, as far as just going forward, and really how far they are going to go with it, because I don't know how they're going to play it, where it goes into the elements of Sub-Zero and then Noob Saibot and the second Sub-Zero, all that stuff. We'll probably have to wait, and then they just kind of go through it in the second film. But there's a lot of questions, and I'm like, I like what they're doing. So far, I like the element of like, okay, he was always kind of the bad guy to begin with. Once you learn the actual backstory, it's like, oh, Sub-Zero was the villain of that story, and then the second Sub-Zero is the cool dude who, has a scar and everything. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as of now, I'm actually excited. I thought it looked good. You can also find the music. It's only like a minute long, which kind of sucks, and maybe we'll get a full version when the movie releases. But they do play the theme song in the trailer. It's obviously background music, but you can look it up on YouTube, and I think the composer put out like the soundtrack for the movie. I don't think it's like the official version, because it's also oddly old. It's like oddly old videos, but you can find like the main theme, and it's really cool. It's actually really good. It's a weird mix of almost like orchestral and like EDM mixing. I know it sounds crazy, but it actually works. That's the best way that I can really describe it. That's how I heard it, and then I heard it described, and then when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I get I get those two things. I can see how they saw it as orchestral EDM. So weird description, but it, oddly enough, it does definitely fit. So I highly recommend you check it out. I think you could just look up new Mortal Kombat movie theme, and you should be able to find it. But I like the trailer. He froze the blood. That was awesome. That was probably like my favorite part, was like he hit him and he actually froze the blood in the air, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. They also did the finish him and then the fatality, and Kano even said like Kano wins. I was like, that's like the perfect way to do it, and he'd be the perfect character to do it. Like it worked. Granted, this is a trailer. You always put the good stuff in the trailer. Also, the one thing I didn't like, the flames around Scorpion. I was like, we see him like come in, literally like a tornado of flames surrounds him, and then he spawns, or he vanishes, and I'm like, they kind of need to up the ante just a little bit. It was almost just like little wispy flames kind of rolling around him, and I was like, that's not nearly as epic. So I would love for that to be like a bit more kind of beefed up and just a little bit cool. It doesn't have to completely cover him like the game, where it's just like like a giant pillar of flames and then he vanishes, but something a little bit cooler. Because I was like, it doesn't even really look like fire was like on the ground and like rising. It just looked like orange smoke, like wispy flames were like just kind of rolling around him, and it just felt more like aura than actual flames. And I'm like, I need that to just be like pumped up just a little bit, and just be like a bit more spectacle to it. Whether he's coming or going, it's just like just a little bit more spectacle. Maybe it was at the end. Maybe he had already spawned, and that's what it looks like as it's starting to wind down. That could be the case. I doubt it, because why show that when you could just be like, boom, here he is, and it's the giant pillar of flames. And it's like, anyone who knows it is not going to be like, what's that random pillar of fire? Everyone will be like, that's up in Scorpion, and that looks amazing. So that was like the one thing I was like, I hope that looks a little bit better when it comes out. But other than that, everything else I was like, all right. First off, we got a trailer, so this movie's actually coming out, because everybody was talking about it. Same with Matrix. We'll see with that one. But I'm excited. I'm actually excited. I want it to do good. It's a video game movie. I want them all to do good. Maybe we're there. That's all I can say. I hope we're there, and I just hope it works. And we'll see what happens. And hopefully, they'll play the main theme song. Maybe it'll be in the end credits, but they'll play that, you know, original theme song, because you just have to. Like, you just can't do it, and you can't make the movie and not have that somewhere in there. Maybe they'll make a joke about it. It'll be somebody's, like, you know, like they do in TV shows where someone's phone will ring and it'll be like the theme song or something. Maybe they'll do that. I don't know. But it's got to be in there somewhere. And so far, I like what I'm seeing. I'm curious what they're going to do with Melina. How hard they're going to go with Sub-Zero being kind of the big antagonist for both the heroes and Scorpion. You know, he's his own thing. So I'm curious about that. Goro is also in it. I'm curious about that. And they also showed the scene with Goro, I also believe is Cole. And it seems like he almost has like an armored up body. So I don't know. I assume that that's not a suit. I feel like that's something to do with his magic ability and, you know, him being chosen and all this other stuff. So it seems like he has like a metallic body, almost like a full body. And it was almost like a dark gold a little bit. Like, it was hard to tell in that quick clip that they showed, and plus he was at a bit of a distance. So it seems like he's kind of not in the same vein as Jax, or it's like, oh, he's got the metal arms, but somewhere in there is like almost like a full magical suit of armor that spawns out. You know, I don't know. That's just how it looked to me, because I was like, it looks like he's not wearing clothes, but it does look like he's armored, because it seemed like it was too skin tight. So I'm like, I feel like that has something to do with his magical ability and whatever they're going to do with that. So I am excited to see it. Lewis Tan is really great at martial arts, so he'll be a good main character, at least action-wise. We just have to hope that the story writers give him some good content, you know, to act on. So I'm excited for it. I'm hopeful for it. I think it looks good. I'm excited for April 16th, I do believe. So we shall see. I would love to see it in theaters, but I'm going to watch it on HBO Max. But I feel like this and Godzilla are the two things where I'm like, dang, I want to see those in theaters. So if I get the opportunity, I just might do it. But I'm excited. Mortal Kombat the movie, and it looks good. All I can do is be hopeful. Video game movies, we just have to hope. But I would love to know your thoughts on the trailer, what you're hoping for from the film, what you think they're going to do with some of the characters. Like I said, Melina, for me, is my biggest question. Just because of, like, oh, well, we didn't see Katana, but that doesn't mean she's not in it. But she almost has to be. If you have Melina, it's just weird. It would be weird to have her and just not have Katana, and you don't go through any of that stuff in the first film, like not even an introduction, like, oh, I'm from this or I'm from that. And she could reference it. They could reference it and still not have either her sister or her father in the movie, and that would be interesting. She's just sent to the Netherrealm specifically just to find the tournament. They could do it, and it would totally fit. And then Shang Tsung happens to die at the end, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to go talk to my dad. And then poof, Shao Kahn. So that could be it. I don't know. But I would love to know your predictions, thoughts, theories, hopes, even for this film. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.